Hello, welcome to the Admission Funnel Report training video. In this video, we'll be using this report to outline the steps that we take to answer the question, what does the fall freshman admit number look like for early action in your program, and how does it compare to the past years? And what proportion is from Washington? The report may look slightly different due to new developments, but we're hoping that by showing our steps on how we can use this report to answer this question, it will give you a sense of how this report could help you. Let's get started. Here, we can see what the report looks like when you first open it. If your screen looks a little different than mine, that's okay. You should have access to the same Power BI tools and report functionality. But please reach out if you still have any questions after watching this video. On the far left, we have the Power BI navigation tools. And next to that, we have the report pages. On the top, we have some Power BI report tools. We have the Reset to Default button, the Bookmark tool, the View Options tool, the Refresh Visuals button, and an option to favorite this report. Below that, we can see the report and that it is broken into two parts, a section for slicers and a section for data visualizations. Here, we have a number of slicers that we can apply, and over here, we have the data represented in multiple forms. We should also note that the data in this report is refreshed daily in the morning, starting from the window of the start of the application cycle, or when you can first apply, to the end of the application cycle, often the start of the term of interest. Let's first consider which page and slicers we will use to focus the data visualization and answer our question. The first thing to note is that on the Selection and Overview page, a few slicers have been pre-selected for us, specifically the academic level, the admit group, and the term pull-down slicers. Since this report is designed to help identify applicants for a future term of interest, the Power BI report's default state will normally be set to an upcoming term of interest, but feel free to make and bookmark adjustments as needed. In this case, we have the academic level set to undergraduate, the admit group set to freshman, and the term set to multiple selections. Let's say that instead of wanting to look at undergraduates in the academic level slicer, we wanted to look at graduates instead. Like any slicer, I can click on the eraser here to clear it, then open the slicer by clicking on this arrow, and then selecting graduate to apply it. We can also see that the visualizations below have adjusted due to the slicer, along with the title here. However, we did not select a graduate admit group, such as doctorate students, so the visualization is trying to find graduate students who are freshmen, which do not exist. This is why you see all zeros here. Let's go back toward our question about undergraduate freshmen. To get there, I could either repeat the process of clicking on the eraser and reselecting everything, but since I know that 1, undergraduates are selected by default, and 2, I haven't made any adjustments beyond this, I can just click on the Reset to Default button here instead, and then here to confirm it. Looking at the visualization, we can see the title has reverted back to undergraduate, freshman, 21RQ, 21FQ. This page is useful for seeing the larger university snapshot. But what if we want to go deeper into more program specifics? To do that, let's look at the YTD Funnel page instead. On this page, we can see that some of the visualizations from the Selection and Overview page have carried over. But we also have a data table below and additional slicers above. Let's consider which slicers we should apply to help find answers to our first question. Here, we can find slicers that are tailored towards focusing our data on specific schools, programs, and application processes. To help with answering our question, I am going to open the Early Action slicer and select Early Action Applicant to apply it to our slicer. This would also be a good point to apply a slicer to help with answering the question and focusing it on your program. Here, we can see the program academic level, school, department, and academic program code pull-down slicers. And by clicking on any of them, we would be able to apply slicers that would help refine the table below. Since we've applied more slicers, the title has changed. I think we're now at a point where we can start looking at the visualizations and the table to see what data points we can find. Now that we have our slicers applied, let's look at the table to see if we can answer the first part of our question. On the left column of the table, we can see the various application stages with the options to expand by clicking on the plus sign. In the center of the table, we can see data represented as counts across the current year-to-date, the prior year, 2 years prior, and 3 years prior. Since the data we're looking at is focused on the upcoming summer and fall quarter, we know that the rest of these columns will be related to that selection. On the right side of the table, we can see the changes represented with an icon and as percentages. If I click on the plus icon here for admitted, the table is expanded to show a comparison and breakdown of data across different programs and schools. I can see this because I have not applied any of the program or school focused slicers. But if I was to, it would filter out any data not relevant to the applied slicer. Either way, this row in the table looks to answer our first question. So let's move on to our second question. To find out the proportion of applicants that are from Washington, we will have to look at applying a different set of slicers. The YTD Funnel Population page here provides even more specific slicers. So let's click on this page and explore our options there. We can see that the title at the top accommodates more slicer information. And if we click on either of these boxes, we can open a panel of applicable slicers. Let's open the General Slicer panel here. On the top of the page, we can now see that there are 4 slicer categories. Since we're looking to find the applicant population out of Washington, we'll look at the Geography column, open the Admit State slicer, and scroll down to apply Washington. Next, we'll click on the Close Slicer panel and take a look at our results. We can now see that the data in the table has changed. In the admitted row of the table, we can see that 31.85% of the admitted population is from Washington. It looks like we found the information that answers our questions. So let's look at bookmarking this point and exporting the data. Let's place a bookmark here so that we can easily get back to this point. We'll click on the bookmark tool here and then click on Add a Personal Bookmark. We'll title this bookmark Freshman, Undergrad, Early Applicant, Washington, so that we can remember what we did to get to this point, and then we'll click on Save. We can see that our new bookmark now pops up. Finally, we'll export our findings. On the top left of the report, we'll click on the Export option. We have a few options for exporting, either in PowerPoint, as a PDF, or in Excel. Let's export this as an Excel file first. We're now prompted with where we want to save the document for access later. Please note that when we export this report through the Analyze in Excel option, we're exporting a version of the whole report. What if we just want to export a specific table instead? If we click on the More Options section of a table that we want to focus on, we can see another option to export data. If we click on that, we'll be given options to customize the report, and by clicking on the Export button, we'll be prompted on where we want to save the data. Let's open the exported file. We can see that there is a lot of data being represented in just this table, so an export of the entire report would be much larger. Each export option supports different purposes, but knowing about both options could be helpful in deciding which export option to go with. Thank you for taking the time to watch this training video. For more information, be sure to check the Inform SU training pages and the report infographic, manual, and glossary. We're working hard to build up more content aimed at specific reports, so please send any questions, comments, or feedback to informsu@seattleu.edu. Thank you again from the Inform SU team, and good luck!